What's not to watch? They're the best at what they do, and I'm the best at what I do, and together it's like, it's on.
In case some of you wonder who the best is, they're up here on this plaque on the wall.
You sure you're ready for this?
I'll do my best.
Your best? Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and the prom queen.
Here we are, boys and girls, the best soccer show on the North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Jason Davis and Jared Dubois, live on a Wednesday evening, December 7th, 2011. It's Pearl Harbor
You got your
Day.
Christmas lights up yet?
I do. I got Christmas lights up. I've got a Christmas tree up. My kid is fascinated. Of course, we've laid down the law.
How much have you used it? How many times have you used the term "no touch"?
A lot. In my house, it's "What's the rule?" is the refrain. What's the rule, Ethan? The rule is you don't touch the Christmas tree. We've got a
I
couple
was
of
driving to the store the other night,
Yeah.
and I was listening to my wife had the Holly station on, or whatever it is, on XM or Sirius, and there's a Boyz II Men Christmas song on, and I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd never heard before.
You've never? There's
Like,
I'm pretty sure I've heard this.
I'd never heard it before. I mean, I was thinking, like, what's your favorite modern Christmas song?
I don't know. It's hard to beat the Mariah Carey Christmas song. What is that? All I want for
That
Christmas is
so
you.
Unmanly what you
I know,
just
but
said.
come on. Back in the day when Mariah was at her peak,
That's right. I might
come
beat
on.
you with mine.
When she's riding around in the back of a convertible wearing a little, little checkerboard shirt. Yeah, exactly. Come on, everybody in Mariah. That was just the thing. We are here to.
My favorite one's Jimmy Eat World's remake, a cover of Wham's Last Christmas.
Okay, that one I have not heard. I have not heard that.
You never heard that?
No. Maybe I'll have to go check that out.
Go listen to the Wham version and listen
All
to
right.
the Jimmy Eat World version.
All right. We are live on a Wednesday evening to talk about American soccer, all things happening in the last, couple of days since we last spoke to you on Sunday. On this show, we will talk to Dwayne Rollins of Canadian Soccer News about the Olympic qualifiers, because the United States has been drawn into a group with Canada. And we're going to get into this with Dwayne, but the big thing out of this is that the United States got the easiest group they probably could have hoped for. So we're going to talk to Dwayne about. I don't know.
Are we going to call it that in front of Dwayne's face?
Well, yeah, I think so, and I think he'd admitted it was great for Canada as well. But we're also live taking phone calls as always. We've got the Best Soccer Show Skype account. We are on the phone. I think it's 201-430-2378. I believe that the producer Jason just gave me some wrong numbers. Maybe a little dyslexia with the numbers there, but is that okay? Should I just let that slide?
You got it right. You got it right. 201-430-BEST.
201-430-BEST. And a bit of show news, Jared. We've got to talk about this, don't we? The fact that we are in serious discussions, mostly among ourselves.
Yeah, we're not in negotiations with any big third party or anything like that.
I don't know. Once we decide, we could be in negotiations with a third party. We are talking about taking the Best Soccer Show on the road in 2012. Now, right now, up on bestsoccershow.com, which is where we are blogging under the Best Soccer Show. I have not gotten my teeth into that yet. I know, Jared, you put up a nice little appropriate video.
It's just a little extra way to interact with the show. You know, if we talk about stuff every now and then, maybe I'll put up a video of the Jimmy Eat World song now that I talked about it. You know, you never know. We're throwing some little tidbits of stuff we don't have time to go
topical
long
stuff.
Form on the show.
Doesn't have to be soccer related. It could be some pop culture stuff that we hit on that people might not know about. Jimmy, I would see now.
Rarely soccer related.
You put up the Jimmy Eat World Christmas song. I go to bestsoccershow.com and I get to see it. And now I know, okay, this is the song he's talking about, and I can make a decision on it. We have a poll up there right now as to which city or cities, I suppose, the Best Soccer Show should visit in 2012. I think at the moment, Kansas City is winning because our friends over at Sporting Kansas City let their friends know, let their people know.
Give us a little bit of credit. We may have enough fans that are listening in Kansas City, but obviously the fact that the actual team, the official site, put the question out there, a huge endorsement for Kansas City. I gotta say, if my hand was greased a little bit, it would say Sporting Kansas City on it now.
Right. So if you're not in Kansas City, get in on this Get your
other MLS teams. I'm not feeling the love yet.
Yeah, get your city up there. We have a phone call. We have a Skype call already. Jonathan's on the line with us again. How you doing, Jonathan?
Good. How have you guys been? Long time to talk.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. You missed out last week. What happened? Where you been?
I don't know, man.
So what's
soccer season.
Yeah, what's on your mind, Jonathan?
U.S. qualifying. I don't know about you guys, but I always just get super excited when we talk about extremely young U.S. players, and I'm just excited for the tournament. Like, I was wondering who you guys are looking forward to, like, players you're watching. Like, I know for me in particular, I'm really excited to see Terrence Boyd play, and I think he could have a huge future at the national team. And I always get excited when we get to see these young groups of kids play, especially like the U17s. Like, you saw that match this weekend, it was also really fun. So I'm just excited.
Right. Look, I think it's easy. I mean, I think it's correct to say that American soccer fans like them young, Jared. This is the
You gotta be careful with your phrasing.
Maybe I'm intentionally being a little
Oh, gotcha.
Look, I'm excited about Terrence Boyd, but we have to put the brakes on a little bit and not get our expectations overboard.
It's his fault. It's his fault for looking that good.
Okay, sure. It's his fault for looking that good in what amounts to training matches. Correct? I mean, I know he's. Go ahead.
I think it was the quality of the team was probably fairly even to the U.S. team. It was the, I think, Stuttgart reserves, I believe, that he scored his goal against. I'm looking forward to seeing how Terrence Boyd and Teal Bunbury, those, hopefully, I'm not sure if that's going to be the tandem or not. Those are two big boys. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if Caleb Porter's going to go that direction, but if he does, that's a pretty cool twin towers of under 23 sexiness there.
Yeah, what are we doing with, I mean, I guess it's still to be determined which players Klinsmann is going to release to Porter for Olympic purposes, for U23 purposes, guys that are featured. None of the Teal Bunbury is solidified in the senior team by any stretch. I'm just saying he's appeared there. He is, at least on Jurgen Klinsmann's radar as a senior player. I would imagine that he's a U23 player if Caleb Porter wants him there.
To go a little bit further into Johnson's question here, I would say Josh Gatz, the other guy that I'm really looking forward to getting a look at, because
didn't get to see him.
I mean, YouTube clips only go so far.
Right.
I'd like to see what he can do. I'd like to see him at 90 minutes strong, because when Brian Soretta comes on our show and says he's the fastest American he thinks is out there right now, that's something I want to see with my own eyes, I'm really stoked to see it.
I believe that Brian Soretta said that Josh Gatz was the fastest American he'd ever seen, period. That's a lot to say. With Marvell Wynn is a pretty fast guy.
I
know. I think he said that he was the fastest guy he'd seen, period. Maybe he was talking about the wing. Maybe he was talking out of midfield.
We still got Jonathan on the line?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I remember listening, and he did in fact say that. And I was also wondering, who do you think for the Olympics are going to be the 3 over 23 players?
Yeah, I think that's the other thing people want to talk about.
We kind of regretted not getting that question in the Porter after we had him on the show. We kind of thought he wasn't going to go on the record saying anybody in particular, but I was interested in at least asking him the positions on the field he's looking about.
I think that would have been smart on my part, and I apologize for not asking the question. I think
I wrote some of those questions too, and I didn't put it in there either.
Is he happy with, I don't know, Sean Johnson as his goalkeeper? Is
it that big of a drop off from someone like Tim Howard to Sean Johnson? As much of a drop off that is in between maybe Clint Dempsey and Terrence Boyd. I mean, is that drop off? Where's the bigger drop off there? What do you want for leadership on the field? What position on the field do you need? If we can't even find a good center back to lead the U.S. team at the adult level, do we have one that you want to put in the 23 team? You could say Bocanegra might get penciled in there. The easy names are Bocanegra, Donovan, and Howard, and Dempsey. One of those four, three of those four probably.
Here's the side. I mean, it depends on who wants to go, right? I mean, I just read or saw an interview from some NBC sports blog that was not a soccer blog. Didn't really know what they were talking about as far as I could tell, but they interviewed Tim Howard on a podcast. I read the transcript. I did not listen to the podcast, but they called him Olympic goalkeeper Tim Howard, which I thought was odd, but
he's gone before. He went last time.
No, he played in the Olympics. That wasn't my problem. My problem was it made it sound like he was the current Olympic goalkeeper, which was just odd to me.
My issue would be that sounds like the best thing he's ever done for us. He's Olympic, World Cup goalkeeper.
I know that, and that's the thing. Like it was. I didn't know if the blog was confused about whether the national team is an Olympic team all the time. Like I didn't understand where the lack of communication or where the mix-up was and why it was. I don't know. I was told that maybe I made too much of it.
What do you think? Is the goalkeeper the position that's a given for this team, or do you think he takes Sean Johnson?
No, I personally think he's going to take some younger guys who are just barely above the age limit. I think a lock for sure is Michael Bradley because he's the type of player who'll be playing with these guys in the future. And I also think possibly Fabian Johnson, as he can continue to be like intermixed with the team. Like I think those two players could be included.
Yeah, I think there's a decent shot that one of the Jamaicans that hasn't. That is working his way into the team. I mean, obviously there haven't been competitive games yet since these guys have been introduced. There's a good shot that one of those guys is the guy that gets to play in London next year. Now, first of all, they have to qualify. I mean, overage players don't matter until you qualify. You don't get to pick those guys until you get to London. So, that's the first step. I mean, like I said, we have qualifying groups, and it's not that big of a deal. These are it's the United States. Why can't I find it? It's the United States.
Our qualifying group?
Yeah.
USA, Canada,
Cuba, and El Salvador.
Yes.
And no, I mean, Canada, I don't know anything about their U23 setup right now. I don't know what kind of talent they have coming through.
Well, that's why we have
that's why we're going to talk to Dwayne Rollins
on the show.
Cuba is always an unknown no matter what because they're Cuba.
Well, half their team's going to leave the day of the game anyway.
Right. You may expect a few defections. And then El Salvador is, one of those Central American CONCACAF teams.
It's a dark horse team country that can go really big, or they can basically kind of deflate.
Right.
Well, it's kind of I put El Salvador in that same vein as Honduras, Costa Rica. It really depends on the year and the team. I mean,
right.
they can be a team threatening to qualify for even the World Cup, or they can just roll over at times. You really get up and down. There's no real consistency in those three teams.
All right, thanks for the call, Jonathan. Moving along, we will talk a lot more Olympics with Dwayne Rollins as well as some other Canadian-related MLS topics. But one thing that we wanted to hit on here really quickly was the reentry draft, the first round of the reentry draft. I went on Twitter and said I didn't think anybody was going to get picked. I just thought that was a decent bet.
I didn't challenge you on that. I didn't think that the names were there.
But you had Arturo Alvarez chosen by Chivas USA, Danley Borman chosen by New England, and Carlos Mendez chosen by Columbus. Just briefly, Arturo Alvarez might not play for Chivas USA. He might be trying to find a way to Mexico, which
I'm surprised by that. It's just another weird pick by Chivas USA. I mean,
Arturo
Alvarez is the biggest. What's that?
I don't think it hurts anything. If he doesn't sign with them, it doesn't matter. I mean,
it doesn't hurt, but I mean, Arturo Alvarez is one of the biggest drama queens. That's why do you think he keeps moving from team to team?
Right. The guy has a left foot and nothing much else, and he
didn't have patience to wait for an opportunity on the U.S. team either.
But he wasn't going to get it. I don't think there was anything wrong with that because he wasn't going to get it. He was out of the U.S. picture by the time he decided to switch. So of those three names,
Alvarez, Borman, and Mendez, which one is the biggest surprise to you of a first-round player taken?
Well, I mean, it's all about money, isn't it? I mean, Mendez is over $100,000, but he's a veteran. He's savvy. I mean, I knows the league. I mean, I think Borman is more talented than people give him credit for. So I don't think that's much of a shock. I guess Arturo Alvarez is the shock. He's making a good chunk of change.
I think Borman for me. I think Mendez I thought looked really good. I thought he looked better of the three center backs that paired with Tim Ream over the course of this last season. I thought I liked the Mendez Ream pairing the best out of all of them. I was kind of surprised to see him. I mean, I'm not surprised to see Mendez go to Columbus. Borman, on the other hand, I don't know. I'm not that impressed when I watched Danley Borman play.
Danley Borman is cheap. Let's just say that. I mean, he's not costing New England a lot of money. So, I mean, of course he's not. Because
music to New England's ears.
Why would New England take him if he was costing them a lot of money?
One other move, though, I want to hit before we get out of this break. Allocation draft coming up for Lee Nguyen, a player that do you think most Americans know who Lee Nguyen is?
No, I think he's completely dropped off the radar. I mean, I really do. I think it's been too. I mean, I'm not going to blame him for playing where he played, but he could have made this move 3 or 4 years ago.
Here's the thing. I get the feeling Lee Nguyen, from everything I hear, is the David Hasselhoff of American soccer. He's huge in Vietnam. Like Hasselhoff, you hear, is huge in Germany.
Right.
Like, from all accounts, it sounds like the guy's a rock star in Vietnam.
Well, yeah.
So the question is, why leave?
Because he wants to come home. I don't know. I mean, he wants to play in the American League. I mean, maybe it's just not hitting him right anymore. That
hot Asian chicks all over you. How are you gonna leave?
There's probably a lot of reasons for it. All right, let's take a break. On the other side of this, we will talk to Dwayne Rollins of Canadian Soccer News. various topics. It's the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network. Don't go anywhere. Back on the best soccer show on the North American Soccer Network, Jason Davis, Jared Dubois. Happy to be joined by a good friend from up north, Canadian Soccer News, and podcast it's called Football. Dwayne Rollins is with us. How you doing, Dwayne?
Doing well, boys. How you doing tonight?
We're talking soccer, so you can't really be bad when you're talking soccer, right? Right?
True.
All right.
True. Touché.
All right, so here's the deal. United States and Canada in the same Olympic qualifying group starting out in Nashville in March. El Salvador and Cuba, the other two teams in this group. Good draw for everybody all around?
Yeah, I think so. This is Canada we're talking about here, and we're always careful to sort of be a little bit hesitant in our acceptance of something being a good draw. But I think if you look at the other, exactly. If you look at the other side, I wouldn't want to be in that group. So
right.
I think that Cuba and El Salvador are both winnable games at this level, and that should set up a one-off game, probably against Mexico. I would imagine the U.S. would be favored against Canada, and have one game to go to the Olympics is really you can't get past that. You can't take too much heartache in that. So a lot of work to do. The problem with the Canadian under-23 program, like a lot of U23s, is they don't put a lot of resources in it until the year. So we won't know a whole lot about it until January. But based on the last time around in 2008 when they did lose the semifinal to the States 3-0, it was a late goal to make it 3, so it was a little closer than it sounded. But, if they can do that again, repeat that, I think it would be a successful cycle for them.
Dwayne, on the U.S. side, we're looking at maybe having one of our first almost entirely professional under-23 teams going into this Olympic qualifying. On the Canadian side, what's the ratio of guys that are in school versus guys that are embedded in professional teams?
It's getting much greater with the MLS academies in Canada. The two of them they're up right now, and the plans in Montreal are very much focused on developing Canadian talent. I think that it's common sense. So you'll see even at the U20 level the majority of those guys are attached to an academy right now. They're not fully professional yet in that case, but they are attached to the academies. I think you'll see that with U23s as well. We haven't seen a list yet, but based on the player pools from last camp in last January, you'll see probably close to 100% of those guys at least affiliated with a Canadian academy. There won't be a lot of NCAA guys and attached to it at this particular time. It will be a lot of TFC Academy and a lot of Vancouver Whitecaps Academy, and getting along for the sake of a tournament.
Do you think that gives Canada a bit of an advantage in the fact that so many of their players are playing together in the same youth systems in only maybe 2, maybe 3 clubs? Is that almost like a miniature kind of like Bradenton is for the U.S.?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I agree. I think it is. An advantage is a hard way to put it, because I think that the United States resources are so much greater that you can't possibly say it's an advantage. But I think it is an advantage in comparison to where Canada has stood in the past, and we've seen it at the U20 and U17 age groups so far. Most particularly the U17 cycle this time through. If you looked at the lineup, 98% of those guys came from 3 clubs. So you had a lot of familiarity there, and they were able to get to the World Cup finals for the first time in a generation, basically. And that was a lot of that was, I think, to do with the fact that they had, that familiarity. In the past, one of the big problems with the Canadian team, as with the United States, you'll be well aware, is that you'd have to flying in these guys from all over the place. And, there were some cycles at the U20, U23 levels where you had some impressive club names on there, but they never really came together. And part of that was because, you're flying these guys in and, they're shaking each other's hands and then the pitch within 24 hours. And, if you have 7, 8 guys with with TFC Academy and, 6, 7 with the Vancouver Academy, at least they have that familiarity and, they've been playing together a lot. I can only, just to touch on real quickly, the U20 pool that's going out for their camp right now only has 2 guys that aren't attached to one of the 3 academies, and I think that says something, and I think that is something that could be a benefit moving forward.
Dwayne, you mentioned the resources and the disparity there between the U.S. and Canada, but I'm curious about how important an Olympic appearance, Olympic qualification. I mean, it's going to be tough. More than likely, Mexico wins the other group, and if Canada finishes second, going up against Mexico is going to be tough. But how big would an Olympic qualification be just for the program in general, moving forward with the senior team in mind?
Yeah, I actually wrote a piece for the Score Television Network today where I touched on this a little bit. I think it'd be massive, and I think a lot of hardcore soccer people look down their nose at the Olympic tournament because they realize that where it stands in the pecking order of international tournaments. It's kind of an afterthought in a lot of more established places.
Everybody but Brazil.
Well, yeah, or the African countries like it as well, of course. But for Canada, I think it'd be huge, and you got to take yourself away and step away from the sort of like insular little world that we all live in, right? There's a whole world out there that doesn't really pay attention to soccer much more than every 4 years.
No.
and those people do pay attention to the Olympics, though. And what I wrote today is, can you imagine how much attention you would get, if we throw to Wembley for an important group stage game, and this tournament's going to get more attention to with Beckham likely there. So I think that really the optics of that for the general population would really be great. And I think when we're looking at it tying into World Cup qualifying, which is also ongoing at the same time, obviously, it would really, I think, help give it an attendance boost if they were to be able to get there and get that exposure and get that sort of those storylines going. Getting to the Olympics it's a double-edged sword, though, to qualify for a major FIFA tournament, because then you have to perform when you're there. Otherwise, cynical bunch of people around here will, Canada sucks, they didn't score or they didn't win or whatever. So you'd have to be careful with that. But I think that at this point in time, it's been 11 years since they last appeared in a FIFA event, that being the Confederation Cup in 2001. So the time is of the essence to get back to one. And I think that the Olympic qualifying, because of the way it's set up, really does offer as good a chance as any. Really, you get hot and win 4 games, you're all set.
Dwayne, a lot of talk right now about the Canadian national team and its future is revolving around 2 players, De Guzman and I don't know if say the American pronunciation of the French, Houllier or Holiet, depending on depending on which way you want to say it. But forgive me for not knowing the ages of these players. I believe they're close to the cusp. Are they under 23 eligible?
De Guzman was in the Dutch U23s last time. Houlette, I believe, would be, but they won't be in this. Junior Houlette is a guy that has been a lot of hand-wringing for the last little while. He's a guy that I've been convinced for about 3-4 years is going to end up with Jamaica. There's a long-standing sort of hissy fit that they're having over something that happened when he was 10 or 11 years old with the Ontario Soccer Association, and I'm not going to bore your listeners with that, but it's politics of the most disgusting and horrible sort that rears its ugly head in youth soccer all over the world, not just in Canada. And anyway, they have a grudge about that, and of course he has some options. So I'd be shocked if he did show up. Now his brother actually is part of the U23 setup, so you will see a Houlette there. It escapes me his first name right now, so I apologize for that. But the younger Houlette, who is not nearly as good, is part of the Canadian setup. De Guzman, that's more of a national team issue, and there's a lot of complications with his passport, and we're not too sure what exactly he did to get the Dutch passport, whether he renounced his Canadian citizenship or not. And if he did that, then it's going to be more complicated, than it's probably not going to work out, is the bottom line. But these are, if you look, you could almost make a team up of guys that were eligible to play for Canada and played for Canada at youth levels, but then opted to go somewhere else when they got to their senior level. It's absurd. There's 7-8 guys that you can look at that all would be a pretty decent team, and it's a bit disheartening for Canadian supporters. So the news of the last week with Jonathan De Guzman suggesting through Julian that, and then later on he confirmed it himself, that he might be willing to reconsider and come back to Canada was, a breath of fresh air for long-time Canadian supporters. At least it was a little bit of a good news to think about for once.
So possibly one guy could kind of reverse that trend of Canadian youth internationals moving on and playing for somebody else, perhaps?
Well, yeah, that would be the idea. Jonathan didn't actually represent Canada at any level, as Houlette has not either. But there's a ton of guys that have out there. I mean, you folks are be familiar with Teal Bunbury, of course, but there's others. Jacob Lenski. There's a bunch anyway.
Heard of them.
that really have done that, have turned their back on it, and of course they're not thought of very well. I do look forward. Jonathan has had some pretty nasty words directed in his direction. There's a particularly interesting song that the supporters sing that includes his brother and something about him being a whore and too bad and all that sort of thing. So it'd be interesting to see when they hold the sign up. Just kidding, Jonathan. Welcome back when he plays his first game, if that happens. He's a tremendous talent, and that's the thing. When you look at CONCACAF and you if you were able to put a Junior Holeta and a Jonathan de Guzman into the Canadian lineup, suddenly getting by Panama to qualify for the Hex doesn't seem so impossible anymore. And it's a significant piece of news, and the CSA is doing all that it can to try and get his passport situation resolved so that he can come represent this country, because I think it could really be a difference maker when you're talking about World Cup qualifying next summer.
Dwayne, in addition to being a Canada a guy, you sometimes we know that you have a large affiliation and knowledge of Toronto. And one of the things that Jason and I have talked every once in a while is, who is Toronto's bigger rival? Is it Montreal? Is it Vancouver? On the record, which is the team that we need
Columbus?
To look for in 2012?
It's Montreal. I would suggest, I'll go so far as to say this, and I know there's a lot of great rivalries within MLS, and there's a lot of, games that are pretty damn close to derby games. You can look at a lot of the East Coast, Philly, New York and DC, and all those long-standing sort of rivalries there, and of course Portland, Seattle, Vancouver to a lesser extent. They're all great rivalries, but I don't think there's ever been a derby game played in MLS that has as much history and baggage as Toronto v. Montreal when it happens next year. You could trace it back to the British and the French and, at the Battle of Hastings, so that stuff. There's so much there. It's going to be an absolute, show when Toronto walks in there. They're going to play that April 8th is the rumored date. That game will be at Olympic Stadium. I suspect you'll see 2,000-3,000. It's over Easter weekend, so 2,000-3,000 Montreal or Toronto fans in Olympic Stadium with a packed house there, because they'll do everything they can in Montreal to try and pack that place out to overwhelm the Toronto support. And if you ever watch if you're hockey fans and you've ever seen the Leafs play the Habs on a Saturday night, the atmosphere is outrageous. It's an old rivalry that has a lot of baggage behind it, and it's the essence of the Canadian sort of experience, the French versus the English. It's going to be spectacular. And talking about the Vancouver rivalry is a different sort of gig. They're on the other side of the country, and we don't we're not exposed to them as much. Those guys hate Toronto a little more than Toronto hates them. It's sort of a little brother thing, and that sounds horrible of me to say, but it's true. So, and I haven't been out there last year for the first game. It was there was a lot of that. The Toronto guys were just going about their business, and the Vancouver guys were losing their mind over beating Big Bad Toronto up. So, and they did beat Big Bad Toronto up that day. So it was one of their few moments of the year, but they had it.
It's going to be the first time that a Montreal soccer team has played a Toronto soccer team. How much of a ratcheting up factor is the move to MLS for the rivalry for Montreal? I mean, it's not like Toronto fans have not traveled to Montreal for a soccer game before.
No, the last time they were there, they were winning 6-1, so and winning a cup. The cup, the Voyageurs Cup, and I've talked with this before and on this show and in its previous setup, but the Voyageurs Cup is such a tiny little competition, and from an outsider, it must look absurd. I mean, you have a 3-team cup competition, 4-team now, but the rivalries within that are absolutely outrageous. Toronto sent close to 500 people down on them, for a Tuesday night to watch the play the Impact the last time through. Going to MLS is going to bump it up because it's going to put it on TSN national broadcast, and it's going to have more casual people in it. But amongst the hardcore support, this is just a continuation of something that's been going on for a few years now. And the biggest thing about it is that the Toronto fans are, I can only speak for the Toronto fans, of course, but I imagine Montreal feels the same way, are quite pumped up about the fact that it's now been over a year because, of course, the way that the Voyageurs Cup was set up last year with two sort of semifinal games, or ties, I should say, Toronto didn't get a chance to play the Impact in their final year in the lower levels. So, by the time there's going to be a lot of pent-up rivalry and rage going on there when they do show up. And I tell you what, Montreal, I'll give them some positive press here for a second. Montreal is going to add something to MLS, a spice that's not always there. they're going to be an interesting addition. They're going to be entertaining at all times. Their fans are a little crazier than what people are used to, and I think it's going to be quite an interesting little culture shock. I can't wait actually for the Impact to go into Columbus. If they think we were bad, I can't wait for them to meet the Montreal supporters.
A certain je ne sais quoi, perhaps.
Oh yeah, it'll be interesting. The UMO2 will certainly acquaint themselves to the Hudson Street Hooligans, I'm sure, and not that we're abdicating for anything unbetold there, but boys sometimes will do stupid things when they're drunk, and I hope that everything stays safe. But
I hope so.
The Impact fans are edgier than what we're maybe used to, and I speak from experience with that.
Let's talk about the product and the teams themselves. I want to ask you, as a guy that, a Toronto guy, Toronto comes into the leagues, still hasn't made the playoffs, struggling to find themselves, got Aaron Venter, all of these things. What do you make of Jesse Marsch? What do you make of Montreal's roster at this point?
I get what they're doing, and I don't necessarily disagree with the approach that Marsch has used. I think that he has looked at what Vancouver and Toronto did, where they were a little, Toronto, God knows, Mo Johnson's mind, if he could get in there for a while, you could sell that probably of that experience, because God knows what he was doing. He was trading everything left, right, and center and trying to wheel and deal his way to something that never really quite worked out. Vancouver went with a little more of a outside the box approach with their expansion draft and an initial approach to their building to their first season, and it didn't, as we all know, on the pitch, it didn't quite work out. I think what Marsch is trying to do is essentially, for lack of a better way, he's trying to build an MLS team as opposed to something a little different, which I think both Toronto and Vancouver did. And I think this MLS team could conceivably, like we saw with Portland, like we saw with Philadelphia, be more competitive in its first year than both Toronto and Vancouver. Now, the one thing that I do wonder about with it, and again, this speaks to the difference in culture between what the Impact bring and other MLS sides, both in Canada and the United States, is I think they're making. I hope that they do sign. Patrice Bergeron is suggested that he'll be there. Anyway. I hope that they do get a French Canadian in there, because without that sort of identity, they're not going to Bernier. I said Bourgeois. I said it's a Montreal Canadian. My Canadian roots are something through here. Anyway, without a French Canadian identity, that city might not take that club as much. They need to speak to their community more than other places. I think that I can't understate that. The French Canadian are very proud people, and it's a very it's a vibrant culture, and they very much want to be represented by people that are like them. They'll accept other people outside of it, obviously. I'm not saying there's xenophobic, but without a character that is French Canadian, without a character that is of Montreal, there's going to be a hard time for that club to initially just grab the hearts of those that aren't already there. So I hope that Jesse Marsch understands that culture about it. The other culture he might not want to understand, but he should know about, is that Joey Saputo is a bit crazy, and he'll fire him in a heartbeat if he doesn't get what he wants. It's a joke that it's the annual Montreal Impact.
We like crazy. We like crazy. That gives us things to talk about. Just really quickly, let's get you out. One more question. You think the Andre Hainaut gambit is going to work out for them?
No, I don't think Hainaut. He was interviewed in Houston radio. He doesn't really want to go there, and that's the. Why would he? His fiance is in college, University of Houston. It's not quite finished yet. She's got another year left, I think, so she wants to finish down there. He's pretty successful. He has one more year left on the contract. We've talked to people that have suggested he wants to go to Europe. He's being diplomatic about it, and he'll be professional. And if they do trade him up there, he'll go. But I'm not sure whether the end game is really the way I'd be going with it. He knows that they would be a very good. He's a Montrealer. He's a bilingual guy. He's a guy that. Can play a very sort of style that would fit in with the other players that they have around him. I think he'd be a really worthwhile pickup, but I don't think Brian Ching is worth Hainaut at this point in time. So, Montreal's going to have to put more resources into any trade that does bring him back. I think the very least the first overall super draft pick would have to be included in that trade, and I'm not sure whether that's something that Montreal should be considering at this point. I don't. Montreal had every right to pick Ching. I just don't think it was the smartest strategical move that they could have made.
Right. So much fun, though. Dwayne Rollins, CanadianSoccerNews.com. It's called football. Please go check out their excellent stuff. Thanks a lot, Dwayne. We appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody. Let's get ready here Let's take a break. When we come back, we got a lot of stuff to cover. We haven't gotten to it all yet, Jared. There's so much on our plate.
There's been a lot of flapping heads so far.
There's been a lot of jabbering. Dwayne's got excellent stuff. Let's see. What's on my list? Charlie Davies, Rudy Gestede, or whatever. It's the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Jason and Jared back on the Best Soccer Show, live on a Wednesday. I did try to mention that it was Pearl Harbor Day at the top of the show, and you talked over me, Jared. So I will mention that now. It is Pearl Harbor Day.
Sorry, I didn't know that was burgeoning news.
No, it's just kind of.
I was trying to talk about pop culture stuff that interests only me.
It's just kind of I come from a military family. I'm not myself military, but my grandfather served in two different wars. My dad was in the Air Force for 20 years, so. Just something I think we should mention. I'm just saying. Pearl Harbor Day.
I've been there.
I have not, so you've got that up on me.
Dude, it's creepy. I mean, it's cool, but it's kind of creepy.
Oh, I don't know. I'd be freaked out. Yeah, I'd definitely be freaked out.
Look down in the water and you see that ship down there. It's creepy.
Yeah. One thing we didn't get to talk about with Dwayne that I want to mention here is that the United States and Canada in the one group with El Salvador and Cuba. In the other group, is that the Los Angeles group? Is that where? Where are the games? I got to figure out.
They'll be in L.A. Home Depot Center.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. The L.A. games,
which screwed me because it would have been so convenient for our show to come out to L.A. to cover the U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah, but we knew that
I just drive to meet you.
We knew that the U.S. is going to be a national when we talked to Caleb Porter. But the other group is Mexico, Honduras, Panama, and Trinidad and Tobago. That is a loaded group.
Loaded.
It is a loaded group. Now, here's the worst case scenario for the United States. Okay, the United States is capable at that level of beating Mexico. I think. I mean, as talented as Mexico is, there's always a chance, especially on American soil and everything else. But if Mexico somehow doesn't win that group, if they come in behind Honduras, and the United States wins their group, the U.S. gets Mexico in that semifinal. There are only two teams.
That's what happened last time, right? Last cycle, isn't that what happened?
Yeah, there are only two teams going to London out of CONCACAF. Only two teams can go. So those are your finalists. They're the ones going. So if the United States loses to Mexico in the semifinal, there are no Olympics. There are no overage players. I don't know that it'd be a disaster at that point.
We survived it 4 years ago. We can survive it again, but I just don't want to have to.
No, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Wait, they go 4 years ago? They went to Beijing.
No, they didn't go 4 years.
Didn't they go to Beijing? Was that 4 years ago?
Isn't that the one they missed? Oh, I apologize. It was the under-20 World Cup. I apologize.
Yeah, you're getting me all confused. Beijing was the Michael Bradley red card. Do you remember this? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Clicking now? All right.
I was confusing my youth championship.
I think it's important for the United States to make the Olympics. I think that's a pretty big deal. I mean, I'm an Olympic fan in general, but as Dwayne said, I think that
for no other reason, the fact that America's actually paying attention.
Yeah, that tournament doesn't get enough love, but it is a visible tournament. I think it's important. I don't know if it's a disaster for Caleb Porter. Not that he's not a permanent in that job or anything, but I don't think it's a disaster if they lose to Mexico in a semi. But if they don't win the group or somehow finish third in the group, God forbid, then it's a disaster. Then it's an abomination. Then it's a problem. But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, that's worst case scenario stuff. My guess is they win the group fairly comfortably. Go into the semifinal.
I'm feeling pretty good about American youth teams right now.
Are you? Yeah, I think that's.
Did you see those U17s this weekend?
Yeah, the U17. Well, okay, it's friendlies, and it's okay. They beat Brazil, and by all accounts,
Brazil.
People are geeking out over their performance against Brazil. That was, from everything I hear, and I didn't get to watch the game. It's on. I think it was on during the day. It was on Fox Soccer, and right now I don't have Fox Soccer. Don't ask me why. They put together a fairly dominating performance with skill, with passing, with good movement, with creating chances, not with
the first half. They denied Brazil a lot of possession.
Right. This wasn't USA Brazil Confederations Cup 2009. That's not what this. Okay, granted, the level's completely different. I understand. But this was.
Do you think Americans now are less intimidated because of the access that they have?
Maybe. I don't know. I that can factor.
Still Brazil. Those yellow shirts go on. You got to think that there's a level there. But these kids did not look it at all.
No. I mean, okay. At that level, I don't think results matter at all. If they had lost that game 4-3, I would probably be just as excited as I am that they won 3-1. I don't think that closing out games and if they're attacking, that's all I care about at this level. If we're going to talk about changing the character of American soccer, of U.S. soccer, from the bottom all the way up, then these kids are the ones that need to, get on board with this change, because in 10 years, they'll be the ones leading us to World Cup. So
there's one thing I want to say about this, though, is that if Klinsmann is trying to, I think the system that Klinsmann's trying to play and the attitude and the style he's trying to play in a version in this U17 team. And I'll tell you right now, this Junior Flores kid is the linchpin in the system that Klinsmann wants to play in the future. Right. This is the prototypical player that the U.S. needs at the highest level to really pull Klinsmann's system together. And I think a lot of people were hoping Torres could be that player. But I say 7 years down the road, this kid could be it if he progresses the way he has so far.
6 or 7 years down the road. So let's not get too excited. I mean, he's got to become a professional. He's got to do it. No, I understand. I understand getting excited. I did read a quote or a bit of information. I think it was Soccer America or somewhere. Apparently the Mexican coach was disappointed to find out that he's Salvadorian and not Mexican because, with the way that the USA and Mexico player relationship is working these days, he thought maybe I could just poach the kid, or he would love to poach the kid. He's not. I think he's appeared or been in youth systems in El Salvador. Or youth setups in El Salvador.
He was easily the best player in that tournament, right? But I didn't see anyone even came close.
Well, again, I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I didn't put a lot of time into U17 friendlies, and I don't think that's a mark against me. I just didn't have enough time to do it. But from everything I hear, he was the one that impressed the most, and that one that people are excited about. You're already talking about the kid like he's going to run the system, like he's going to be.
I'm just saying that is the player that. If we're going to breed a player to play Klinsmann's system, I don't think it has to be him. It needs to be a kid like him.
All right. We are live, by the way, 201-430-2378, Best Soccer Show on Skype. We should give big props to Clint Dempsey for setting a Premier League American scoring record, passing Brian McBride. All the goals are scored for Fulham. All of them are scored for Fulham. I think it's like, I saw a stat. Somebody on Twitter had it. Maybe it was Opta Joe or Opta Jack or whatever. Or maybe the stats guy for ESPN, the soccer stats guy, I can't remember his name. Something like 60 out of 90 goals have been scored for Fulham, and maybe I've got those numbers wrong, but he sets.
Either way, it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's great to see Clint Dempsey continue to do his thing in England,
especially when you consider so many of those goals came from midfield.
He can stop biting people's noses though, or faces, or lips, or whatever the hell he bit on Craig Bellamy. He can stop doing that. I
see whatever you're
I am down about. With Clint given his Texas attitude and throwing it around the Premier League.
What is this? I don't even know what you're talking about.
He and Craig Bellamy had a tete-a-tete in that game against Liverpool, Fulham and Liverpool.
So did they have a tat off?
No, they did not have a tat. That'd be way better than what actually happened. Go find the picture. In fact, go right now to the site I write for, Kickers, KCKRS.com, and you'll see the picture that I'm talking about. It's fairly disturbing. Okay. I was disturbed. Maybe I'm the only one that was disturbed, but I was disturbed. It just didn't need to happen. Whatever Clint did to Bellamy, we'll put it up on BestSoccerShow.com. We'll put it up on our blog too, so you can go there. I think we've got a phone call from the 585. Who's this?
Hey, this is Dan. How's it going?
Not bad. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing amazing. How are you guys doing?
We're talking to you, so we're fantastic.
All right, so now that we're talking about Clint Dempsey just tearing it up in Europe, I think we should talk about Landon Donovan and his legacy. Is he going to go down for not really challenging himself in Europe and just, cruising it along in MLS?
Whatever would have brought this question up?
We do actually have it right here next on the outline. Perfect segue from Dan. Brad Friedel said on BBC or whatever radio he was on to talk about Clint Dempsey setting this American scoring record. that Landon Donovan, in fact, I have the link. We should read the actual quote, Jared, so I get this right. Do you have it in front of you, or should I pull it up?
Said, I would have to paraphrase, but I believe it's something along the lines of he took the easy way out by staying in America.
Yeah, took the easy road, right, Dan? So that's what you're asking, is Landon Donovan going to be judged harshly by history because he, quote-unquote, took the easy road, right?
Right. Well, I mean, and I don't know how flying 60,000 miles a year around, wonderful places like Columbus and, the rest of MLS is considered easy, but I get how Brad Friedel and all his bald goodness thinks it is. So,
well, I don't understand what Friedel is. I really don't know where he's coming from, I guess. I mean,
I think he's trying to cement his own legacy more than
this is the attitude that dogs Landon Donovan in fan circles. I can understand fans maybe with a little bit blinders on, not quite getting it, wanting to see the quote-unquote best American player go and do it in a big league with the big money and the big players in Manchester United and Arsenal and Chelsea and all those things. I get that. But when it comes to a player like Friedel, who knows Landon Donovan, who's been around Landon Donovan, who's played on teams with Landon Donovan, he should know better, right? I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous that he would say that Landon Donovan took the easy road when Landon Donovan, I don't know.
I feel bad for Clint Dempsey. Clint Dempsey did nothing to spur this debate at all, and he's caught smack in the middle of it because Brad Friedel wanted to speak for him.
Here's the quote.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing about this, though, is that Brad Friedel and Clint Dempsey never had the burden of being told they have to make soccer.
They were never the poster child
in America.
They were never the poster child.
Landon Donovan, whether he wanted to or not, got put that label on him.
They weren't picked out at 20 years old and said, "Here's the next great American superstar. Here's our guy."
Now make it happen.
Right. Nobody
wants.
How
do you make that happen overseas? You can. It's a lower percentage that you can make it happen overseas.
I don't think
Clint Dempsey's probably having more success now than Donovan ever would in his career. And who in America knows who Dempsey is versus who knows who Landon Donovan is?
I don't even really think that's a fact. Look, maybe I'm too live and let live with this situation, but I can't understand criticizing a guy for being really good, staying, whether he's staying or going, he's still really, really good. He still performs for the national team. I don't understand criticizing a guy because he wants to be in Southern California making, 7 figures, living the life, dating actresses and divorcing them. I don't understand why people
Jason,
would criticize.
Do you know how much I pay for a house in California? It's worth it.
I don't, Dan, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I think the Landon Donovan hate is a lot of people who maybe they're frustrated athletes. Maybe they have
haters in
Jason,
life.
There's more than one path up this mountain. I think ultimately, history is going to judge Landon Donovan and Brad Friedel. And, I think Landon Donovan, when we look back at this in 20, 30 years, and all of us have kids our age and are looking back at this, we're going to say that Landon Donovan probably did more to grow the game for us here in the U.S. than guys like Dempsey and Friedel did overseas.
Right. I don't think that's their job. It's not Clint Dempsey's job to think about how am I growing soccer in the United States. It's his job as an athlete, as a professional, to go and make as much money as possible wherever he wants to play. He can push himself to the end of the earth if he wants. I mean, I think that actually Clint Dempsey should be trying for something bigger because he seems like he wants to. But I won't judge him if he doesn't. If he stays at Fulham because he likes Fulham and he keeps scoring and he's still an American star in England, that's not going to bother me if he doesn't go to Liverpool or
There's no wrong answer
Arsenal.
Here. Two great soccer
players
chose a different path that would best fit their priorities in life.
I don't understand why there has to be one way, or why Landon Donovan is, because he was anointed by press when he was a teenager in California, why he has to live up to their expectations.
If anything, we have two great players that have given young players two different blueprints for success in soccer in America, and two different measuring sticks of how you can measure it. Neither one's wrong.
No.
Metric and standard, neither one's wrong. You're going to measure a mile or a kilo either way, but what you just may choose to like one more than the other for the simplicity of it.
I think you've got a point there. There are American kids, guaranteed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old who are falling in love with soccer as they're playing it, and they have a role model. I mean, they have somebody a hero. They have somebody that they can point to and say, he's really good. He plays for the national team. He leads this team in World Cups, and he's playing in MLS. I want to go play in MLS. Now, whether they decide 5 years afterwards that they want to go play in England, that's fine. But at least for now, we have kids dreaming about playing in MLS. That's a big deal.
Look at Tim Duncan. Look at Kobe Bryant. Tim Duncan is fundamentals. He's going to do the exact same 5 moves on you every time, and he's just as successful as Kobe Bryant, who you can't tell what he's going to do every time he touches the ball. There's lots of different ways to success and lots of different paths. Different players choose different ones. Right. It doesn't make them any better than any other.
All right, we got to take a break. Thanks for the call, Dan. It's the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to close this one out. Jason and Jerry back to close out the best soccer show on a Wednesday night, December 7th, as I mentioned before. I'm like doubling up on my date checks. Let's talk about emails. We got 3 of them this week that I wanted to read. We did not have time. We had good callers. We had Dwayne Rollins.
Thank you for that.
Other things. Yes. But this one we'll hit real quick from Jay. He says, I've looked but haven't seen any Best Soccer Show merchandise available. With Christmas coming, I would love to grab a t-shirt or something for my son. I think you guys are missing a very small boat. Very small boat here. Let me know if it's out there and I missed it. We do not have any merch at the moment, but that's likely to change at some point.
Something for his son. I wonder how old his son is. Is that our target demo? Young kids?
Well, hey, anything that says soccer, yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure.
Are you even growing?
Very nice. Also, he says, about this ongoing blathering about whether or not Arlo White or some other English guy should be the voice of MLS on NBC. I have a slightly different viewpoint. I don't think we should be trying to get an American voice just so it's an American voice. I think we should go with a British guy because he is British. Any bloke with an English accent is just going to sound smarter and funnier than an American no matter what they say. Are you even listening? I have no idea.
Is this the guy that claims the British office is better and he's never even seen the American one?
I don't know if he's being sarcastic or not. I have to hope so. Because I think that's my main beef, right? When it comes to soccer, that's just the attitude.
It's kind of like the token Brazilian on every team. Everyone's got to have a Brazilian because they're supposed to be good.
Supposed to be good, yeah. And then they're the destroyer.
Have you seen him play? No, but he's the name ends in Eno. He's got to be good.
That's exactly right. Let's see. What else we got to mention here? We do have... get this out of the way. We have a bracket winner. We have been we teased that contest for a while. We got people got like 300 entries for the MLS playoff bracket contest. It's been a little while since the MLS Cup final, but we do finally have tabulated. We have tabulated a winner. Thomas White got everything right except RSL Seattle, but everybody else had LA beating Sporting Kansas City, which was my pick. So everybody's like me and got it wrong. Congratulations to Thomas White. We'll be in touch to get you your prize.
Thomas White. That's like the whitest name ever, isn't it?
Well, at least his name's not Walter White, because that would just be terrible.
Wally. I know a guy. I went to school with a guy named Wally White. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
We should mention that everybody should go to iTunes. Give us reviews and ratings. I know this sounds like my close. Am I missing something? Oh, you wanted to talk about Charlie Davies, right? And
just for the sake of I don't worth our time.
Okay, I want to know where these are coming from. All of a sudden, these rumors pop up.
His agent?
Everton. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Everton's looking at Charlie Davies. No, they're not. Look, if Everton is looking at Charlie Davies and you're an Everton fan, go dig a hole and crawl in it, because that is some serious bad stuff right there. That's bad.
Wow. No, you're a hater, ain't you?
No. You saw Charlie Davies play. You saw how he ended up at the bench on the bench with DC United. Do you think he's anywhere close to the field for Everton?
Have you seen the strikers Everton does use?
Okay. Do you think that Charlie Davies is good enough to play for Everton?
No.
Okay. No, there you go.
Not in this current status.
There you go. I mean, I would love for it to be true.
But I'd be lying if I said that every EPL team picked players solely because they're the best talented. A lot of them they buy for marketing purposes as well.
Well, do you think that Charlie Davies is going to get them a lot of heat in the U.S. that they don't already have with Landon Donovan and Tim Howard?
For the right price, it might be worth it.
Nah, maybe. But, I mean, it's yeah. I don't know. I think Charlie's
What do you think moreover, before we get out real quick, what do you think of Marcus Hanneman not going to Seattle and them going with a different goalkeeper?
Because of the allocation process. I think that's in an email somewhere that we're not going to get to. They went with, what's his name? Gasperning, who's Austrian, apparently turned down Olympiacos or Panathinaikos, I can't remember which one, to come to Seattle.
He was playing in Greece last, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was playing for another Greek team. Siggy said something about the allocation process with Marcus Hanneman. He's a returning American international. He would have to go through that process. We are probably reaching the point now where they could get rid of it and it wouldn't be that big of a deal, that these players could go to the highest bidder. I understand what they were trying to do with this allocation process. You don't want to let one team with the most money buy up all the American internationals and their potential marketing power, I guess. And
but at the same time, you're denying a good American international from having a voice and a place in an American league. I'm not saying that we owe players anything, but there's something to be said for players that went overseas and did a yeoman's effort bringing the American game and name abroad.
And letting them go where they
all he
wants
to do is come play in front of his home
fans.
Well,
I mean, and what they typically do is if let's say Hanneman really, I don't know, do you think that if Hanneman really wanted to play in Seattle and he told MLS, if I sign with you, I'm only playing in Seattle, they wouldn't have worked something out, and the team...
I'm sure it's happened before.
They would, yeah, exactly. This is all backroom stuff, and I know that makes people distrust MLS, but, again, I get what they're doing with the allocation process. I think you could do away with it. You probably should. Lee Nguyen's another one, and it would be okay. But then again, they just massage these things. So stop massaging, get rid of it. Let Marcus Hanneman go play in Seattle if he wants to. As I mentioned, iTunes, video, audio, ratings, reviews helps us out a lot. We're on Roku, Blip TV. We're on Apple TV. We are at bestsoccershow.com. We are blogging now, where Jared is posting videos of 80s sitcom stars. It's fantastic.
Come on, Willie Ames, baby. Willie Ames set to the greatest musical tribute ever.
It is brilliant stuff. I think that's going to do it for us on a Wednesday, right? Right? We're finished. We covered it all. We got it.
Thank you for your calls. Thanks for your emails. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate it. Vote. bestsoccershow.com. Vote for your city. We are taking that into account seriously. Trust us. Bye.